Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into something a little heavier. Not the grandeur of ballrooms or the sparkle of first class, but the heart of Titanic's underworld, a place of steam, sweat, and silence. You're about to witness what life really felt like beneath her polished decks, where soot clung to every breath and survival meant rhythm, not riches. So before we go any further, take a second to like and subscribe, but only if this kind of slow, immersive history is your thing, and drop a comment to let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is on your end. I love seeing who's listening in the quiet corners of the night. Now, maybe dim your lights, let that soft hum of your fan or heater become part of the story, and if you're ready, let's descend into the steel bones of RMS Titanic together. Welcome to this gentle voyage through time. Tonight, we don't drift on calm seas. Instead, we slip into the hidden heart of the ship, where glowing lanterns lit narrow passages and the low, constant thrum of machinery never ceased. Feel the air thicken with warmth, the echo of shovels against coal, the beat of steam engines pushing ever forward. Let your shoulders ease, your breath slow, and allow yourself to drift back to April of 1912, where luxury reigned above, but sacrifice powered it from below. Imagine once more the narrow iron stairwell that leads you from the polished corridors of the first-class decks down into the steaming heart of the Titanic. With each step, the distant murmur of violins and soft laughter fades, replaced by a rising, insistent hum, a living pulse of pistons, rods, and valves. At the bottom, the air presses against you like a warm blanket, heavy with moisture and the tang of coal dust. Ahead, a yawning doorway reveals the boiler room's cavern, a cathedral of iron and fire. As you step across the threshold, notice how your senses adjust. The light here is dim and reddened by the glow of the furnaces. Lanterns hang at intervals, their glass panes clouded with soot, casting mottled pools of orange illumination. Shadows writhe across corrugated steel walls, alive with the flicker of flames. The heat is immediate. Before you even feel the warmth against your skin, you sense it in the air's density, thick as soup, resisting every breath. Breathe in slowly. The scent is a mixture of scorched coal and hot metal, mingled with a faint undercurrent of sweat and oil. Each inhalation carries microscopic particles that cling to your nostrils and throat, reminding you that you have left the world of fresh sea air behind. The first taste of that atmosphere is harsh, but your lungs adapt quickly, and soon the muffled roar of engines becomes your new lullaby. Your eyes adjust to the half-light. In the foreground are rows of massive cylindrical boilers, their rounded backs bowed beneath riveted seams. Each boiler is a furnace awaiting its daily offering, hundreds of pounds of coal, shoveled relentlessly into a hungry maw. Between the boilers, narrow walkways are slick with coal dust and sweat. Any misstep could send you stumbling into a blistering hot surface. The floor vibrates beneath your boots, a constant tremor that you feel in your soles, your spine, your teeth. A figure emerges from the semi-darkness, a fireman in suited overalls, his face lit by a lantern held low in one hand, offering guidance. He nods, a brief acknowledgement that you belong here, at least for a time. You find yourself instinctively adopting his posture, slightly hunched, feet wide for stability, and eyes trained on the glowing furnace doors. Approach the furnace door. It is a circular opening sealed by a heavy cast iron door chain locked and bolted tight. The metal handle is hot enough to require a rag-wrapped grip. Even so, the heat radiates, sending waves of warmth up your forearm. With a grunt of effort, the fireman unlatches the bolts and swings the door open. Instantly, a geyser of orange-white flame bursts forth, and you catch your breath as waves of heat wash over you. In your hands is the coal shovel, its wooden handle scorched, its blade rimmed with refinery soot. The coal itself is jet black and oily, lustrous in the lantern light. You practice loading the shovel, scoop, lift, extend your arms, and push with both hands into the furnace's cavernous throat. Let the coal tumble and settle. The hiss of steam greets each fresh deposit as the fire exhales in contented bursts. Shoveling coal is more than mere labor. It is a measured rhythm, a dance of body and breath. Your arms pump up and down. Each lift engages your shoulders, your biceps, your back. The work is continuous. One shovel, two, three, and onward, until the muscles burn and your breath grows ragged. Yet you learn to pace yourself, an unspoken understanding that sprints lead to collapse. There is pride in maintaining the cadence, in knowing that your efforts translate directly into the forward movement of this ship, this floating marvel. Around you, other firemen work in concert. Their motions echo yours but are staggered, just enough to ensure the furnaces never starve. There is an unspoken communication in the timing, a glance, a nod, a slight change in tempo that signals a lull in shipments from the coal bunkers. You become part of this human engine synergy, each man a vital stroke in a grand mechanical heartbeat. While the firemen manage the fuel, another team, the water tenders and engineers, monitors the steam pressure coursing through miles of copper pipes overhead. Look up, and you'll see a labyrinth of tubes glinting with condensation, droplets forming beads that catch lantern light before falling in sporadic tap-tap rhythms. Each droplet is a reminder, these pipes carry superheated steam, the lifeblood of the Titanic's engines. Gauges line the walls like watchful eyes. Each face is numbered in pounds per square inch, the needles dancing in real time. It falls to you and your comrades to watch those needles closely. Too little pressure, and the engines will slow too much, and valves may rupture, a catastrophe in these confined quarters. When the needle spikes, you adjust the throttle. When it dips, you call for more coal. This is a perpetual balancing act, a silent negotiation with the forces of steam. The soundscape intensifies as you near the engine rooms beyond the boilers. The murmur becomes a roar, the steady, synchronized chug of pistons driving massive shafts. Oil drums line the perimeter. Workers apply lubricants, their hands slipping in grease as they grease the moving parts. A single drop of oil struck by lantern light gleams like a diamond, a small mercy of comfort in an otherwise brutal environment. You might pause at the threshold where the boilers end and the engine begins. Feel the floor's vibration intensify underfoot, as though the ship itself were straining to move faster across the water. The mechanical rhythm resonates in your chest, and you realize your own heartbeat has adopted the same tempo, steady, unhurried, enduring. Time fades in the engine room. Hours blur into one another, divided only by the occasional relief of a fresh shift. You and your fellow firemen rotate on a schedule, 4 hours on, 4 hours off, yet you never truly rest. In your downtime, you remain in the bowels of the ship, leaning against steel girders, rubbing aching limbs, and catching stolen sips of water before the heat drives you back to duty. Every muscle in your body remembers the work. Your shoulders burn from hoisting shovels, your back aches from the bent posture, and your lungs burn with every breath. Yet, strangely, there is solace in the routine. The predictability of toil becomes a form of meditation. The inhale and exhale of breath, matching the in and out rhythm of the fire door, the dip and lift of the shovel. In this repetition, you discover a curious calm, a numbness that allows you to endure. Occasionally, a water tender emerges from the engine room, wiping soot from his face, his eyes reflecting a mixture of fatigue and relief. He may exchange a few quiet words with you, a request for cleaner coal, an update on pressure, or simply a nod of thanks for your labor. In these exchanges, you find camaraderie. Despite the exhaustion, there is pride. Without your effort here, the Titanic would not glide so confidently toward her destiny. Despite the discipline and routine, the engine room is fraught with risk. Coal dust is flammable. Sparks or a stray ember could ignite a flash fire. Steam leaks can scald flesh. A single burst from a weakened valve could send superheated steam whipping through the corridors. You learn to respect these dangers with a calm vigilance, never allowing complacency to creep in. Listen for the hiss that sounds sharper than usual. Feel for the tremor that indicates a loose bolt in the steam lines. See the way a cluster of sweat beads on a pipe might suddenly flare to steam, an early sign of weakness. Quick, measured responses save lives. If a valve starts to leak, you close it fast, but with controlled strength. If coal spills onto a furnace's edge, you stomp it clear, choking off potential flare-ups. Your protective gear is minimal. A cloth cap to catch falling ash, heavy boots to shield your feet, and leather gloves that guard against brief contact with hot surfaces. Yet these small shields are all that stand between you and the elements you control. Every precaution feels both necessary and insufficient, a testament to the precarious balance of life in the engine room. Amid the shared labor, there are moments of solitude. Perhaps you find a corner between boilers where the heat is less intense, and the din recedes to a low rumble. Here you close your eyes against the lantern light and feel the ship's breath beneath you. You hear the steady rush of water against the hull beyond the steel walls, a distant ocean lullaby that you rarely experience directly. In these rare stillnesses, you reflect on why you endure such hardship. Maybe you're supporting a family back home, or perhaps you're driven by a sense of adventure, a desire to be part of something grand. Regardless of the motive, you feel a connection to the men beside you, to the mechanics you maintain, and to the colossal ship itself. You are a guardian of motion, a keeper of the fires that propel dreams across the Atlantic. Time in the boiler room is measured by the sky you cannot see. Instead, you mark the passage by the lamp's sconces being refilled, by the adjustments in the engine's throttle from night to dawn, and by the whisper of footfall above that hints at meal deliveries or shift changes. Occasionally, a runner from the galley descends with iron trays holding tins of coffee and biscuits. The coffee is weak, the biscuits hard, but the offering is warm and sustaining. You gather around a small hatch, leaning in to accept your share. The murmur above is a gentle reminder that life continues beyond this chamber. The captain's dinner, the band's rehearsals, the elegant promenades where passengers stroll beneath evening stars. For a moment you savor the contrast between your hidden realm and their lofty comforts. The thought brings both a twinge of envy and a sense of purpose. Yours is the labor that enables their ease. As hours accumulate, fatigue settles like a fog. Your movements grow slower, more deliberate, yet you maintain the essential rhythm. The engines whisper their lullaby. Piston rise, piston fall, the slide of gears, the sigh of steam. In the center of this orchestration, you find a paradoxical calm. The heat that once stung now wraps around you like a weighted blanket, and the persistent vibration through the deck beneath your feet becomes a gentle hum against your bones. You realize, in these moments, that the engine room is both a crucible and a cradle, the crucible of human endurance, and the cradle of the Titanic's promise of connectivity and progress. It is here that raw human muscle merges with industrial might, forging a singular purpose to carry the world's hopes across a vast indifferent sea. As this first shift draws to a close, you prepare to ascend once more into the cooler decks above. You wipe soot from your face, wash coal dust from your hands at a small basin, and pause at the threshold. Behind you lies the hot, humming underworld. Ahead, the world of polished wood and bright lanterns. You take a final deep breath of the steamy air, committing its weight and warmth to memory. As you step upward, the iron stairwell feels cooler, firmer underfoot. With each ascending step, the noise and heat recede until, at last, you emerge into the muted calm of the second-class corridor. The contrast is immediate, quiet footfalls on carpet, the faint scent of polished brass, and distant laughter from staterooms. You find yourself blinking, reacclimating to this gentler realm. And yet, even as you leave, know that the engine room's pulse persists. Deep within the Titanic's hull, fire continues to roar, steam continues to rise, and the hideaway labor of dozens of men continues without rest. In that steady heartbeat lies the hidden story of the Titanic's journey, an uncelebrated testament to the human spirit's resolve beneath the glamorous veneer of luxury. As you settle into the furnace room's rhythm, the line between labor and environment blurs. Think of the boilers as living beasts, each one breathing in coal and exhaling steam. You learn to listen to them, recognizing subtle shifts in tone. A furnace that hums with a steady tenor is content. A furnace that suddenly crackles or sputters demands your attention. You lean close, hand hovering above the metal before you even touch it. In that moment, you become both caretaker and student, attuned to the ship's inner life. Feel your heartbeat sync with the mechanical pulse. Each intake of breath accompanies a piston's rise, each exhale a release of valve steam. The temperature on your skin holds constant, as though the very air were suspended at the threshold of combustion. Even in the brief lull between shoveled loads, you remain alert, body coiled and ready, senses sharpened by necessity. Follow the coal's journey from storage to furnace. Beyond the boiler room lies the bunkers, vast coal bunkers packed tight to maximize weight distribution. In near darkness, other stokers shovel coal into wheelbarrows or hopper cars, then hand them off to crewmen who push them along narrow rails into the fiery chambers. You imagine the steady creak of wheels, the grunt of a stoker loading his barrow, the echo of metal wheels on steel rails. Walk beside them for a moment. Your boots crunch on loose coal dust. Your hands grip the wooden handles of the barrow. You strain against its weight, feeling it pull downward, each step forward requiring mindful effort. At the furnace threshold, you lift the barrow's contents into your shovel, then repeat the ritual, over and over, until the bunkers yield their stores. The crew orchestrates this flow seamlessly, an unbroken river of fuel sustaining the Titanic's onward surge. After hours of unrelenting work, your body begins to betray small signs of strain. Your knees ache from bending, your shoulders throb from curling and extending that heavy shovel. Even your fingers, calloused from gripping hot metal, feel stiff and raw, and yet, the most profound fatigue settles deeper in your mind. The constant din of machinery invades your thoughts, creating a background hum that seeps into every waking moment. There are no distractions here, no sea view, no sky, no birdsong, only heat, only labor. You learn to compartmentalize your awareness. One part of you remains vigilant for dangers, another part drifts into a muted half-dream during repetitive movements. You may catch yourself counting heartbeats or steps, using small mental tasks to stave off monotony. This silent duel between concentration and surrender shapes your hours, a trade-off between dying into unconsciousness and holding fast to duty. Despite the hardship, a quiet fellowship binds the engine room's denizens. A shared joke about the furnace door's stubborn latch, a nod to the new chump who learns the rhythm too quickly, a wordless glance when coal dust clouds your vision, and another hands you a rag for your eyes. In these moments, you feel less like an isolated laborer, and more like a vital part of a collective. Occasionally, you exchange brief history's origins in Welsh mining towns, emigration stories from Ireland, or distant memories of simpler backwoods lives. These personal tales drift through the steam-laden air, a reminder that each man carries a world beyond the boilers. Yet, the crucible of the engine room forges them into a unified presence, each one steeling himself for the next shovel, the next hour, the next shift. With every passing hour, you become acutely aware of how small mistakes can become catastrophic. A misplaced foot upon a slick grate, a momentary lapse in locking a boiler door, a misread gauge. You learn to trust your instincts. The slight tremor in a pipe, the whispered hiss of an unseen leak, or the skewed angle of a pressure dial. Each warning sign compels immediate action, closing a valve, tightening a joint, or summoning a fellow engineer. In one corner of the boiler room, a small pool of water collects from a slow sealing leak. You approach it with caution, testing its depth with a wooden block. Coal dust settles in the puddle, turning it to a slick paste. You place a small barrier of scrap wood to divert the trickle away from a vulnerable seam in the piping overhead. Little interventions like this reassure you that, though labor is relentless, control remains possible in small measures. Within your grueling schedule, you carve out tiny oases of respite. A brief stretch at the furnace doorway, elbows leaning on cool metal frames. A sip of water drawn from a battered canteen, its rim dented from a past fall. A quick wipe of the brow with a grease-stained cloth. Even these fleeting pauses, measured in heartbeats, sustain you. They punctuate the toil with reminders that you possess a body beyond its utility as fuel feeder. At times, a supervisor engine room don of sorts will permit a few moments of indulgence. A pipe of tobacco lit in a separate nook, filling the air with an earthy sweetness that cuts through the coal dust. You inhale slowly, letting the smoke coil around you, then exhale in spirals that vanish into the furnace glow. These small comforts affirm your humanity amid the steel and steam. Time loses meaning as night falls, or what passes for night below decks. The lamps remain lit around the boilers, their flames unvarying through darkness. Above, passengers might dine by lamplight or dream in plush cabins, but here the line between day and night dissolves. You follow a clock that marks only hours on duty, not the world's time. Yet, you notice subtle shifts. The hiss of steam is cooler in the early hours, less piping pressure, as the Atlantic chill seeps inward. At dawn, the lantern light reveals fresh motes of coal dust, dancing in pale rays that reach through small portholes. You catch a glimpse of water beyond the steel, a grey expanse where seagulls wheel and cry something you almost forget exists. And as the sun rises, the boiler room's heat seems tempered by the distant chill, offering a brief promise of relief before the cycle resumes. Pause to consider the quiet heroism in these unseen depths. No audience hailing your efforts, no lavish pay for your sacrifices. Yet, without these hidden hands, the Titanic would be a stationary fortress, clinging to port like a grounded whale. Instead, it glides poised, majestic, a testament to the union of human endurance and mechanical prowess. Your toil, repeated endlessly, powers a dream of connection. Families reunited, emigrants bound for new worlds, businessmen trading fortunes across oceans. In that knowledge lies a subtle dignity. You are part of something vast, beyond any individual, and though your story is seldom told, you carry it, woven into the very fabric of the ship's progress. As your shift wanes, you begin your preparations to return to the upper decks. You carefully stow your shovel, brushing coal dust from its worn face. You gather your oil-stained cloths and dip them in a small basin of tepid water. You run your hands under the flow, feeling the grit wash away in spirals of grey. With each cleansing motion, you shed a layer of soot and strain. You pause before the stairwell, a final inhalation of that heavy air, a moment of silent acknowledgement. The boiler room's heat, its mechanical song, its ceaseless demands, they will remain behind you, but only temporarily, for soon you will descend again, drawn by duty and the promise of motion. Step into the stairwell. The heat recedes with each ascending step, first warmth, then mildness, then a damp chill that kisses your skin. When you emerge onto the second-class corridor, you are greeted by quiet carpets, the soft glow of electric lamps, and the faint scent of perfumed air. The world above feels almost dreamlike. Hushed conversations, the scrape of polished shoes, the gentle rush of fresh air from open portholes. In this transitional moment, allow your breath to deepen. Let the contrast between the furnace's roar and the corridor's hush fill you with a calm appreciation. You have traversed two realms in a single breath, one of heat and labor, one of comfort and ease, and both belong to the Titanic's fragile tapestry. As we draw this first segment to a gentle close, carry with you the image of the engine room as more than mere machinery. It is a living workshop of devotion, an underworld where sacrifice and skill converge to animate a floating palace. Here, the collective pulse of many hands and hearts transforms coal into steam, steam into motion, and motion into destiny. With that in mind, rest your thoughts for a moment. Picture the glow of forge and furnace fading behind you, replaced by the calm hush of corridors above. Feel the steady exhalation of breath that accompanies relief, and sense the latent power that continues beneath the waves. When you are ready, we will ascend fully to the Titanic's wheelhouse and beyond, where decisions and personalities shaped her fateful final hours. As you settle back into this voyage through the Titanic's story, allow the gentle unfolding of Captain Edward John Smith's life to wash over you. Picture each moment calmly, and let your breath slow to match his steady composure. Weaving through his boyhood memories, career milestones, daily routines aboard ship, and his final hours, we will immerse ourselves in nearly 4 millennia of experience, yet move forward in a tone both measured and soothing. You find yourself in the small seaside town of North Shields, England, in the year 1850. The air carries the salt tang of the River Tyne, and fishing boats drift like silent sentinels at low tide. A young Edward Smith walks barefoot along the muddy banks, his eyes tracing the dark hulls slipping past. His father, Captain John Smith, stands at the helm of a coal collier, silhouetted against a wintry sky. From an early age, Edward learns to steady himself on a rolling deck, feeling the boat's gentle sway beneath his feet. Imagine him crouched on the pier, his hands clasped around a chipped wooden toy boat, watching sailors haul crates of salted fish and barrels of ale. He breathes deeply the mingled scents of seaweed, coal smoke, and cured herring, an everyday blend that will later remind him of home when he commands vessel after vessel across the world's oceans. His mother, Mary, beckons him inside with a wooden spoon, stirring oatmeal porridge, its steam curling like the mast of a distant ship. At the hearth's glow, Edward listens to stories of great voyages of whalers in Arctic seas, of packet lines bound for New York, and tales of survival after storms at sea. These early impressions sink into a young mind as solidly as driftwood embeds in sand. With each lesson from his father knot tying, signaling with flags, reading tide tables, Edward's fascination deepens. By age 12, he is a cabin boy on coastal traders, learning the creaks of masts and the lingo of sailors, the gentle slap of waves, the measured howl of wind in rigging, and the creak of wooden planks beneath boots become as familiar to him as a steady heartbeat. At 15, Edward enlists as an apprentice with the Merchant Marine. Imagine your own hands, calloused and young, hauling lines on a 3-masted clipper heading for South America. You learn that a sudden squall can blast rain in horizontal sheets, soaking you to the skin, then vanish in minutes to reveal a calm, sun-drenched afternoon. Captain Smith experiences this dance of weather countless times, forging a keen intuition for forecasting storms before barometers even dip. In the quarterdeck's hush before dawn, he studies navigational charts, parchment sheets, annotated in careful script. He traces potential routes with a fingertip, calculating latitude by stars and longitude by chronometer. Each calculation demands focus, discipline, and an almost meditative steadiness. In your mind's eye, you lean over a chart table beside him, candlelight casting a warm glow on compass, rose and rum lines. the sound of slapping waves echoing in your ears. Over the next decade, Smith rises steadily, third mate, second mate, first mate. His reputation grows for precise log entries, entries so neat they resemble calligraphy. He learns to read oilskins by their discoloration, to sense a port's approach by subtle shifts in smell, salt giving way to humid, earthy aromas of peat and pine. Wherever he lands, he studies local charts, speaking with pilots to learn hidden shoals and shifting sandbanks. This attention to detail becomes a hallmark of his command style. In the early 1880s, a fresh-faced officer named E.J. Smith joins the White Star Line, a company striving to blend safety, luxury, and punctuality. Imagine him stepping into a polished office at Liverpool's bustling docks, dark-stained wood paneling, creaking floorboards beneath guests' boots, and clerks poring over docking schedules. He is introduced to Thomas Ismay, the line's formidable owner. Ismay, tall and precise, offers Smith a firm handshake and a view of the company's grand vision, iron leviathans that will rule the seas. Smith begins as second officer aboard the RMS Atlantic, learning the nuances of large steamship management. Gone are the sails, here are the massive boilers and twin screws. He studies the rhythmic shudder of reciprocating engines and the metronomic hiss of steam release. In the engine room, he befriends stokers and engineers, learning the language of gauges and grate settings. He discovers that the human heart must synchronize with the mechanical pulse too rapid, and accidents slip through too slow and schedules falter. Promotion to first officer brings new responsibilities. Imagine him on bridge watch, dark silhouette against star-strewn skies, eyes scanning for ship's lights that might clash with his course. He records radio signals crackling in the Marconi room, an innovation still in its infancy. Whenever static clears enough for a coherent transmission, he notes the time, the call sign, the message, all to build a network of shared warnings for ice and storms. This new technology intrigues him, hinting at a future where ships communicate across empty water like neighbors talking over garden fences. By the turn of the century, Edward Smith has earned the sobriquet millionaire's captain for the wealthiest of passengers who solicit his command. Boardrooms of New York's elite request his services. Sheikhs, oil barons, and socialites clamor to cross the Atlantic under his steady hand. Imagine yourself as a guest in first-class saloon, dining on silver-trimmed china, while a distinguished figure, Captain Smith, ascends the grand staircase to greet each new arrival. His uniform navy blue with gilt braid shines under crystal chandeliers. He develops a reputation for discretion and courtesy. No grand speeches, no forced jollity, only warm but reserved engagement. At tea dances, he stands aside, allowing guests to converse freely, though he will always respond to direct inquiry with engaging but concise detail. An anecdote about sea currents here, a weather prediction there. His calm presence even soothes jittery travelers who fear storm-tossed seas or emerging transoceanic rumors of submarine warfare. In quieter moments, he writes home on White Star stationery. His letters to his wife Sarah speak of the beauty of sunrise over open water, of dolphins dancing at bow wave, and of sunsets painting the horizon in hues of copper and lavender. These letters are brief and factual, lacking the florid sentimentality common to the era, yet they convey a deep affection for family and a quiet pride in his work. As you imagine them, feel the soft scratch of quill on paper, the faint smell of ink, and the gentle rocking that marks each written line. In early 1912, word comes of a new vessel under construction, RMS Titanic, sister ship to the Olympic and Britannic, destined to outshine them both. Visualize the White Star shipyard at Harland and Wolff in Belfast. Skeletal hulls towering like cathedral naves, thousands of workers spilling sparks and steel beams, and scaffolding rising into misty air. There, Smith inspects plating thickness with a hand gloved in leather, notes the curvature of bulkheads in his pocket notebook, and tests staircases for smooth ascent. He taste tests the first batches of bulk produce from kitchens, turbot, roast beef, and strawberry parfait. He samples the newest Marconi set mounted in the wireless room, asking operator Jack Phillips to demonstrate connectivity tests. He inquires about lifeboat drills and reviews regulations. Though lifeboat capacity will be deemed compliant by law, he privately notes the ratio of boats to passengers and mentally catalogues which davits might become jammed under stress. As departure day approaches, he meets with his officers. Captain Smith's command structure is deliberate in its flat hierarchy. 4 senior officers, Murdoch, Lightoller, Moody, and Pittman, each assigned watch rotations, and a complement of junior officers for rosters and passenger welfare. He holds a leisurely yet purposeful dinner in his officer's mess. Boiled ham, potatoes, and green peas, washed down with pale ale. Conversation stays light, jokes about tricky harbour currents, recollections of near-miss groundings, and exchanges of weather lore. Smith smiles at each man, knowing he can trust them to execute orders without hesitation. April 10th dawns, crisp and clear. You stand on the dock at Southampton, as the Titanic's prow cuts a fine line across still water. Bands play Nearer, My God to Thee, though the notes drift more landward than into the ship's bow. Families wave kerchiefs, children clutching dolls, emigrants holding tickets to new worlds. Smith stands on the quarterdeck, eyes shaded by his cap, surveying the scene with pride and quiet satisfaction. Passengers file past on the gangway. He bows slightly to Mrs. Benjamin Guggenheim and her daughters. He acknowledges Mr. and Mrs. Astor with a nod. He softly greets steerage families, offering a courteous handshake to each, tokens bearing Mediterranean passports. Throughout it all, he remains composed, comfortable in a realm where schedules shift only by hours, weather by days, and where each courtesy rendered helps to maintain calm before the voyage. Above the bustle, lookouts climb the catwalks and settle into the crow's nest. Stokers carry coal to furnaces. Engineers light up the boilers. The familiar hum returns. But now it holds the promise of maiden voyage, the thrill of a new ship's performance. Not yet marred by routine and wear, Titanic slides away from her berth, gently nudged by tugs, and you feel the boardwalk's texture fade beneath you as the vast North Atlantic beckons. For the next 3 days, Smith's routine unfolds with measured grace. Each morning at 6 a.m., he awakens to the soft chime of his alarm clock and the steward's knock. He dons uniform, smooths braid on cuffs, and stands for a moment on the small veranda outside his cabin, inhaling the fresh air before the world awakens. Over tea and toast, he reviews the ship's position in the chart book. He jots notes in neat ink, logging winds, temperatures, and barometer readings. He confers with his hydrographic officer about ocean currents, particularly the perilous Gulf Stream's edge near the Grand Banks, a boundary where temperatures shift enough to spawn fog and conceal ice. At 8 a.m., he walks the decks. First-class promenaders greet him, many by name. Some pause to inquire about a predicted storm in the Irish Sea. He gives them a calm assessment, no worse than moderate breezes and scattered showers later that afternoon. He smiles, and they continue toward the reading room or deck chairs. At noon, he dines with his officers. The meal is simple broth, roast lamb, potatoes, but the conversation is earnest. They review ice warnings, the Coronia's report of fields, the Baltic's mention of bergs, the America's garbled message of growlers drifting at surface. Each warning is logged and annotated. Smith's comments are brief but deliberate. Maintain full speed. Keep watch heightened. Engines on standby for reverse, he says, his tone steady. After lunch, he holds an informal drill on the boat deck, while third-class stewards rehearse passenger muster procedures. Smith observes from below, noting friction in davit mechanisms and offering suggestions. Slow the lowering speed by 1 notch. The boat mustn't swing too wide. His corrections are kind, but insistent on a ship of Titanic scale. Small tweaks save lives. As he turns away, you sense the confidence his crew places in his judgments. Evening brings another bridge watch. The sun drips red into the horizon, and lanterns glow along the deck rails. He studies a chart by oil lamp, marking possible detours around berg clusters. Under his command, Titanic glides on flat seas, engines humming at full throttle. With each knot gained, the ship's reputation and that of her captain grows more formidable. Between midday April 11th and late April 13th, Titanic receives at least 6 distinct messages warning of ice. Picture Captain Smith in succession, opening folded cables. RMS Caronia, April 11th, 8 o'clock, large ice area reported 41 degrees, N49 degrees W, proceed with caution. RMS America, April 12, 1430, growlers drifting at 41 degrees 10 N49 degrees 0. RMS Baltic, April 12, evening fields of ice, bergs close by. SS Californian, April 13th, afternoon. Stopped for the night among ice. We are surrounded. RMS Mesaba, April 13th, 2140. Iceberg, right ahead. Dangerous. Additional Baltic signal, clustered sea ice, 41 degrees 27, and 49 degrees 56. W. Each message is handled with the same procedure. copied into the official logbook, officers consulted course headings possibly adjusted. Yet despite layered warnings, no significant speed reduction occurs. You may imagine Smith's internal calculus, trust in the ship's design, virtually unsinkable, confidence in lookouts, pressure of maintaining schedule. His tone remains unhurried, never flustered, never dismissive. He follows the practices of the day, relying on visual lookout rather than wireless direction, trusting binoculars rather than radar that does not yet exist. All that preparation and experience culminate in the hours after sunset on April 14th. Recall the glassy sea and glowing moonlight, a sea calm enough to mirror the sky. On Titanic's deck, steam from funnels drifts in soft plumes, and the ship's speed remains at 22 knots. Smith positions crew for optimal watch. 6 lookouts in the crow's nest, 2 in the foretop, officers on the bridge, scanning the horizon, and watertight door operators at posts to respond instantly. At approximately 11:40 p.m., Frederick Fleet rings the warning bell 3 times, a signal that echoes through the still night. His eyes fixed on a faint black silhouette, he calls, "Iceberg, right ahead." William Murdoch transmits the order, "Harder starboard," and the engines grind into reverse. Steel groans as the bow swings away, but the ship's momentum is enormous. Titanic has neither the time nor turning room to clear the obstacle. Imagine Captain Smith on the bridge at this moment. You see him step forward, gripping the polished wheelhouse rail with one hand while the other adjusts his cap. His eyes narrow as he watches the iceberg's jagged form, partially illuminated by moonlight, drift astern as the ship's bow veers. Then he turns to Chief Officer Wilde, "Commence stopping engines." Wilde nods, and the whistle sounds in a ghostly blast, warning those on deck to brace. Within minutes, Titanic's hull is compromised along a 200-foot stretch of steel plating. 5 forward watertight compartments begin filling. As Captain Smith, you would immediately weigh damage reports from below. Watertight doors close with pneumatic hisses, sealing corridor bulkheads. Smith questions operators. Compartment 1 flooded, 2, 3, each reply is clipped but factual. He consults his officers. We can remain afloat on 4 compartments. 5 is the limit. They cross-reference ship's flood stability tables. Titanic can survive 4 compartments flooded, but 5 spells doom. For a fleeting moment, his mind calculates distances to possible rescue ships, Carpathia, Californian, Burma, and their steaming radii. Then he turns to the wireless room. Send SOS to all stations. Position 41 degrees 46, NEN 50 degrees 14 W. He taps out the formal distress call, adding succinct details, require immediate assistance, large ship in distress. Titanic en route to New York, many souls aboard. Titanic is equipped with 20 lifeboats, and 4 collapsibles, plenty by regulations, but not enough for all aboard. Imagine yourself alongside Captain Smith supervising boat deployment. He watches as officers lower davits, ensuring chains run smoothly over the falls, and that lifeboats clear the ship's side evenly. He approves loading procedures, women and children first, a policy executed by officers Lightoller and Murdoch with subtle differences. Lightoller emphasizes women and children, while Murdoch allows women and children and men, if space. Smith circulates among stations, offering calm encouragement. In one lull he leans over a boat, stretches out an arm to a fainting third-class mother, whispering reassurance in a gentle baritone. "Take my hand, you will be safe." He stands back, hands clasped behind his coat, observing the ebb and flow of terrified passengers climbing down ropes and stepping into boats. At 12:15 a.m., Lifeboat 10 departs, followed by Lifeboat 12 and 14. Each boat's crew is composed of stokers, firemen, and deckhands, men who once toiled in the boiler room and now row into the unknown night. Smith notes empty seats in some boats and discreetly urges officers to fill them, yet confusion reigns as many passengers hesitate at the rail. In a brief pause, imagine Captain Smith's internal dialogue. He peers through a small window into the Black Sea, watching lifeboats drift away. His heart must ache, decades of devotion to safely delivering souls, now confronted with mortality. Yet his face remains impassive. He knows that unmaintained order breeds panic. He recollects lessons from storms past, how calm words and clear commands saved lives. He recalls the courtship of his wife Sarah, how they promised devotion to family and duty alike. Despite the chaos, he finds solace in the one constant he has always known: the ship's design, its trained crew, and the protocols in place. Now, protocols extend to evacuation. Near the starboard rail, He confers quietly with Second Officer Lightoller. Proceed with collapsible boats once main boats are gone. Lightoller nods, his expression grim beneath lantern glow. They share a moment of silent understanding. Leadership must persist, even when hope is dim. At 1:20 a.m., Titanic's starboard side is underwater. The list increases rapidly. The bow dips deeper. Funnel no. One breaching the Black Sea like an exhausted sleeper's nasal exhale. Shoulders hunched, Smith watches the decks tilt beneath him. Passengers cling to railings at odd angles. He heads toward the grand staircase, a refuge of bright oak and wrought iron where muffled sobs and prayers echo. There, he addresses remaining guests. Please proceed calmly to the boat deck. Our boats are nearly full, and we will launch collapsibles shortly. His voice, calm and low, barely rises above the groan of steel. He notices frightened gazes, pale faces, and trembles of terror. He offers gentle nods, guiding each trembling hand to rail grips. In this moment, he is not a distant master, but a steward of final passage. By 2 a.m., only collapsible lifeboats remain, 2 of which are swung out in a precarious tilt. Smith oversees their lowering, directing able-bodied seamen to fill them with any who remain. One collapsible, Boat A, drags along the deck as the list worsens. Crew push and shove, balancing against the slanted deck. You hear the clang of metal, the thud of boots, and the suppressed curses of men struggling against gravity's new direction. Smith positions himself near Boat B's davits, watching water swirl around its edge. He exchanges a glance with Fourth Officer Boxhall, silently confirming that it will be the last boat. Men clamp davit hooks into place, ropes tighten, the boat yields slowly outward, dipping precariously. Floorboards scrape metal as water laps beneath. Smith watches until it floats free, then steps back, every muscle alert. After the last boat departs around 2:05 a.m., Captain Smith stands alone on the deck. Water rises above his boots. Each wave brings the ship closer to her end. He ascends to the windlass platform, an elevated perch atop the forecastle. From here, view the endless Black Sea, illuminated by starlight and early dawn's glow. In that quiet moment, the responsibility he's borne for 50 years converges. Fellow souls saved, but too many still aboard. He removes his cap, holding it over his heart, in a gesture of solemn respect, both to the ship he commanded and the people he could not save. He offers a silent benediction, perhaps recalling words of loved ones, "Be of good courage," from his Anglican faith. The ship's bow creaks as it settles. The stern lifts, funnel 4 bobbing overhead like a wounded beast, gasping. In your mind, sense his composed resignation. Though cold water beckons, he remains calm, dignified, and unwavering. The echoes of boiler room labor, the disciplined routine of daily command, the measured issuance of orders, all culminate here in silent valediction. As the Titanic's lights wink out, Captain Smith's story becomes legend. His decisions whether to maintain speed or not have been analyzed by historians, each with the benefit of hindsight. Yet, in his era, he acted within norms, and with profound skill. After the disaster, maritime regulations changed, lifeboat counts increased, iceberg patrols intensified, and wireless operators remained on constant watch. Smith's final voyage thus became a catalyst for safer seas. Reflect on how a single man, by temperament and training, embodies the strengths and limits of human endeavor. His steady courage reminds us that leadership in crisis is neither about grand gestures nor vocal theatrics, but about calm presence, clear decisions, and devotion to duty, even unto death. As we gently close this chapter on Captain Smith, feel your thoughts settle like silt in still water. Let the cadence of his life's narrative ease your mind. Ahead lies a deeper mystery, where the Titanic's broken hull rests on the ocean floor, awaiting rediscovery and secrets untold. When you are ready, we will descend into segment 3, exploring the wreck's hidden passages and archaeology. As you settle into your seat once more, allow the gentle hum of our narrative to guide you deeper, this time into the silent underworld, where the Titanic now rests. Beneath nearly 12,500 feet of dark Atlantic water, steel plates and wooden timbers lie scattered across the ocean floor. In 1985, modern technology pierced the abyss to reveal what had for decades been imagined only in rumor and memory. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and imagine yourself aboard a research vessel on that historic summer day, preparing to send machines where no human could follow. In the early 1980s, 2 expeditions vied to locate Titanic's final resting place. One was led by French oceanographer Jean-Louis Michel, the other by American explorer Robert Ballard, supported by the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution and the US Navy. Funding, secrecy, and rivalry underscored the quest, but so did a shared yearning to solve a 73-year-old enigma. Imagine yourself aboard the MV Corner in June 1985. The deck is slick with morning spray as you watch a team of engineers assemble a remotely operated vehicle, Argo. Argo's frame is heavy-duty aluminum, festooned with lights bright enough to carve great arcs through the blackness, and video cameras designed to withstand crushing pressures. Its 8 thrusters promise precise maneuvering across a seabed littered with unseen hazards. Below, the ocean is a realm of absolute stillness, a place where sound travels farther than light, where the pressure is nearly 6 tons per square inch, enough to collapse an unprotected submersible like an empty tin can. Yet, on this vessel's deck, tension mingles with hope. Cameras are tested, thruster motors are greased, and cables are reeled out in readiness for the milestone dive. At dawn on September 1st, 1985, Argo is deployed with cautious ceremony. The winch hums as a cable lengthens, lowering the vehicle into inky waters. You hold your breath as its lights blink on one by one, illuminating only a pool of darkness at first. Then, as it descends beyond known depths, the cameras adjust, and a ghostly scene emerges. Before you lies a vast debris field, scattered cookware, personal effects, lengths of deck railing, and the delicate remains of china plates, painted with blue transfer prints. The rusted hull appears in fragments, some sections inverted, others partially buried in silt. Argo glides over twisted metal, an unattached anchor, a jammed watertight door, the detached roof of a lifeboat davit. Each object seems to hang suspended in the gloom, tethered by memory to the ship they once graced. Allow your breath to match the vehicle's steady movement. Notice the frames per second of the video feed, revealing each detail: a brass porthole still intact, a leather suitcase cracked open to expose faded clothing, a lone shoe tread embedded in sediment. This mosaic of remnants speaks volumes about the ship's final moments. The violent breakup, the scattering of belongings, the silent testimony of catastrophe. Yet, there is also beauty in the stillness, a haunting tableau of human endeavor set against nature's vast canvas. As Argo's cameras pan, the team makes a startling discovery. The Titanic rests in 2 major sections, about 1/3 of a mile apart. First is the bow, its intact prow pointing northeast, the name Titanic still legible on the stern plate. Corrosion, marine life, and time have softened its features, but the massive anchor windlass and the curved hull are unmistakable. The bow section lies bow down at a 15-degree angle, partially embedded in mud and sand. A gliding turn of the vehicle reveals the stern half twisted, collapsed in upon itself, and inverted. Funnels lie buried, propellers jut skyward, and the once grand staircase lies crushed where the deck gave way. Between the two, a field of debris tells the story of a catastrophic breakup. Columns of wooden paneling, metal chairs, porthole frames, and skeletal ribs of the ship's interior. Imagine the researchers charting this scene, sketching positions of key artifacts on computer screens, and later converting them into detailed maps. Each sonar ping and camera still frames provide coordinates precise to a few centimeters. The magnitude of the discovery sinks in an intact vessel no more, but 2 sentinels marking a tragedy, and yet, in their scattered inertness, lies an invitation to explore, to piece together a story beneath endless tides. Following Argo's revelations, the submersible Alvin descends with 2 researchers on board. Picture Alvin's round viewport, thick acrylic, reinforced by steel girders. Within its cramped sphere, 3 scientists geared in thermal suits and tethered by communication lines prepare for 60 hours of dive time. The temperature outside hovers near 34 degrees Fahrenheit, 1 degree Celsius. Inside, they rely on battery-heated suits to stave off hypothermia. You are among them, pressing your forehead against the cold glass. Argo's lights sweep across the bow section again, but now you see it with your own eyes, the thick ice-blue water refracting each beam into ghostly shards. Alvin settles gently on the deck, the bow plate towering above like the prow of a submerged cathedral. Steady your breathing as you note details. Anchor chains draped over the deck, rows of riveted plates curving skyward, a cluster of boilers half buried. Through the viewport, thousands of rusticles' iron-eating bacteria hang like fibrous curtains, silently consuming what remains. Each board and beam bristles with these microscopic architects, crafting conduits where none existed. The scientists collect samples, noting filigreed patterns of decay. They photograph ornate banisters, a lamp fixture frozen in time, even a single skeleton of a deckhand, ribs splayed like fanning fingers in the sediment. Yet they do so without sensationalism, their words whispered over comlinks, mindful of preserving both the wreck's sanctity and their own calm. As Alvin's divers return, conversations on deck turn to the ethics of artifact recovery. Should personal items be removed, or left for the sea to guard? Imagine the argument: one voice urges preservation, another cautions respect for the dead, and a third recommends careful removal of high-priority pieces for museum display. Ultimately, the team agrees on a policy of minimal invasion: document extensively, retrieve only what cannot deteriorate further, and always prioritize conservation. Picture a battered leather suitcase being lifted in a specialized cage, hoisted through rolling waves, then airlifted to a lab in Woods Hole. There, conservators bathe it in deionized water, slowly leaching out salts that would otherwise crystallize and shatter fibers. Other artifacts, porcelain cups, a child's toy, surgical instruments undergo similar treatments. Each item is catalogued, photographed, and eventually displayed in exhibits that evoke the Titanic's human dimension. Alongside tangible objects, intangible discoveries emerge. The wreck's location revises historical accounts of sinking angle and breakup sequence. Sediment samples reveal the Titanic's impact dispersal pattern. Marine biologists study the rusticles to understand deep-sea ecosystems. The wreck becomes both memorial and laboratory, a silent classroom beneath ocean pressure. As the explorers' lights first revealed the Titanic's shattered form, the world beneath the waves quietly transformed into both memorial and laboratory. In parts B through D, we journey through detailed archaeological investigations, the fragile recovery of artifacts, and the ongoing mysteries that linger amid rust and sea life. Breathe calmly, and let each image deepen your sense of wonder. Following the initial discovery, successive expeditions returned with ever more sophisticated equipment. Multi-beam sonar systems swept the seabed in high-resolution swaths, creating three-dimensional maps of the wreck site. Imagine a grid drawn on a vast dark canvas, each ping of sonar tracing the contours of debris, defining peaks where collapsed superstructure lay, and valleys where sediment had drifted. From the deck of research vessels, scientists watched screens that displayed wireframe renderings of the two main sections. They marked reference points, boiler numbers, davit placements, propeller shafts to link underwater photographs to exact geographic coordinates. The result was a digital twin of the site, enabling archaeologists to plan dives with millimeter accuracy. Viewing this model, you might trace a line from the bow's anchor windlass across the debris field to the stern's broken elevator shaft, appreciating the immense scale and complexity of the wreck. Ribs like Jason and Hercules, tethered by miles of cable, carried robotic arms that could gently brush away sediment or latch onto fragile artifacts. Picture an ROV descending into darkness, its cameras illuminating twisted stair railings and chunks of teak deck planking. Engineers remotely positioned the vehicle, aligning a manipulator claw to cradle a corroded brass telegraph head. With slow precision, they lifted it clear of silt, aware that sudden movements might shatter what time had already weakened. Parallel to ROV efforts, humans ventured down in the submersibles Mir and Alvin. These craft, built to withstand the Titanic pressures, housed 2 or 3 researchers in cockpit-like cabins. Imagine the hush inside as they floated mere yards above the seabed, watching fish dart among metal ribs. Through thick viewports, they sketched observations, photographing details from multiple angles. Their calm voices over intercom described discoveries in measured tones. Deck plating section 38 shows buckling consistent with stern first breakaway, or observed a cluster of life jackets caught on railings, still in bright orange synthetic fiber. Archaeologists treated the debris field with the reverence of a war grave, often leaving in situ everything that did not threaten immediate deterioration. In areas where collapsed ceilings had created protective pockets, delicate items like porcelain teacups survived intact. In places where shifting currents had scoured away sand, structural elements lay fully exposed, offering clues about how the ship fractured. One significant find was the grand staircase's landing panel. Over the bow plating, sediment had built up in layers, preserving wooden banisters beneath a cover of silt and rust. Divers used suction hoses to gently remove fines, revealing carvings of cherubs and scrollwork. Each brushstroke of water exposed more of the ornate design testament to luxury, in contrast to the ship's utilitarian skeleton. The stern's engine telegraph was another focal point. Partially buried, its brass faceplate still bore the legend, "Full Aston." An ROV freed it from sand, lifting it for close-up inspection. Engineers noted pitting and corrosion, but marveled at the craftsmanship. Engraved numerals, polished handles, and beveled glass windows that once conveyed life and death commands. Beyond mapping and artifact retrieval, scientists took sediment cores, long tubes plunged into the seabed to study the wreck's impact on surrounding ecosystems. These cores revealed distinct layers, recent organic growth, mid-century fine silt, and deeper, pre-Titanic marine mud. Pollen and diatom analyses indicated how currents shifted over decades, while tiny foraminifera shells shed light on water temperature changes. Organic chemists examined hydrocarbon residues from leaking bunker oil. Thin films of black sheen on the water's surface were traced back to tiny fissures in hull plating. These leaks offered insights into the longevity of oil preservation under cold, dark conditions. Samples taken from near the boiler room area showed oil pockets trapped in rivet seams, sometimes emerging as slow drips that glistened under submersible lights. One of the most striking discoveries was the proliferation of rusticles, delicate filaments of iron-eating bacteria that sculpt micrometer-thin stalactites from corroding metal. These rusticles drape from exposed beams like cathedral candles, their reddish-brown tendrils swaying in the current. Biologists aboard submersibles collected samples to sequence bacterial DNA, discovering species unique to deep-sea shipwrecks. Observe the slow dance of decay. Bacteria digest iron, excreting byproducts that cement rusticles together. Over decades, these formations weaken structural supports. In some places, entire sections have collapsed under their own weight, leaving gaping holes where decks once stretched. Yet, paradoxically, rusticles also preserve shapes once removed carefully. They reveal the outline of pipe flanges or bolt clusters underneath. The objects raised from the seabed tell intimate stories of those who lived, worked, and perished on Titanic. Each artifact undergoes painstaking conservation to stabilize it, transform it from brittle remnant to museum piece, and preserve it for generations. Let us chart the journey of these items from dark ocean floor to lighted gallery, and in doing so, honor the human dimension of this eternal tragedy. Imagine a moonless night aboard the research vessel. Deck lights glare onto churning waves as lift bags sway gently on the end of ROV arms. A coal shovel, attached to a cage, is hauled up, dripping water and black silt. Crew members guide it across the deck with gloved hands, placing it into a cold water containment basin. There, artifacts are held at 4 degrees Celsius to prevent rapid drying that could cause cracking. Larger items, sections of staircase, or a metal life jacket plaque, are cradled in padded frames. Each receives an identification tag, a log records, Object 1985-23, bow deck light, the 25th of June 1987, 3,800 m depth, recovered near boiler room manifold. Catalogers note dimensions, materials, condition, and precise location coordinates. Overnight, conservators begin preliminary desalination baths, immersing objects in tanks of fresh water that is changed daily. Gradual salt leaching prevents crystallization that would otherwise shatter wood or corrode iron further. Conservators employ advanced chemical techniques to remove chlorides embedded in metal. Artifacts rest in baths of deionized water, their conductivity measured by probes until salt content falls below critical thresholds. For iron objects, electrolytic reduction reverses corrosion. A small electric current draws oxygen away from the metal into the water, transforming brittle iron oxide back towards stable forms of iron. This process can take months or even years depending on artifact size. Visualize a massive boiler valve, its surface rough with corrosion. It sits in a tank, electrodes attached at opposite ends. Over weeks, bubbles rise as oxygen leaves the metal. When the conservator withdraws the valve, its engraved flange lettering, once obscured, reappears in glinting steel. The transformation is subtle but profound. The valve is no longer on the verge of collapse, but stands as a solid remnant of industrial power. Wooden objects, cabinet doors, deck chairs, and a section of grand staircase balustrade pose different challenges. Once waterlogged for over 7 decades, untreated wood would shrink and warp upon drying. To prevent this, conservators soak items in polyethylene glycol PEG, a wax-like polymer that penetrates wood fibers and replaces water. Gradual concentration increases over months until the object is saturated with PEG. Next comes freeze drying. The item is placed in a vacuum chamber at sub-zero temperatures. Ice sublimates directly to vapor, leaving PEG in place to support cell walls. Picture the balustrade's ornate curves emerging from the chamber, unchanged in shape and free from cracks. Its surface, once slippery with growth, is now a stable artifact you could touch without fear of embrittlement. Titanic's first-class wardrobe produced a trove of textiles: silk evening gloves, woolen blankets, and leather trunks. A silk evening bag, its embroidery intact, arrives in a sealed container. Conservators humidify it in controlled chambers to relax fibers before mounting it on a supportive mannequin. Under regulated light levels, the hand-stitched beads and delicate lace trim reappear in full detail. Leather suitcases once stowed under berths require tannin stabilization. The leather is treated with solutions that reintroduce moisture-binding compounds, preventing brittleness. Zippers and brass latches are cleaned ultrasonically to remove sand and rust, then lubricated with microcrystalline wax. The result, a once cracked case that can open and close smoothly, its silhouette crisp against the museum backdrop. When these items travel to museums from Halifax to London, they are displayed in dimmed galleries with subdued spotlights. Each case includes a written account: the item's location on the ship, the name of the passenger or crew if known, and a soft narration playing in the background. Visitors listen to a calm voice describing how a mother fastened her child's life jacket before descending the davits, or how a stoker carried his lunch pail through the boiler room's heat. These displays balance respect with education. Labels avoid sensationalism, instead inviting reflection. This porcelain teacup probably sat on a second-class table before being swept away by rushing water and silt. By focusing on everyday objects, the teacup, the glove, the boot, the narrative remains human-centered, gently reminding us of lives interrupted. Even after decades of exploration, the Titanic continues to pose questions, some scientific, others philosophical. Preservation wrestles with natural decay and legal, ethical dilemmas. In this final part, we consider the shipwreck's future and what it teaches us about memory loss and our relationship with the deep sea. The Titanic is inexorably collapsing. Structural analyses predict that within a few decades, the bow and stern sections will crumble, leaving only isolated debris. Deep-sea currents exert shear forces on exposed plates, tearing away weakened metal. Rusticles continue to weave their lace-like webs, consuming steel at a rate that accelerates with every passing year. Imagine scientists installing time-lapse cameras on the hull, capturing slow-motion collapse. Over months, a porthole frame tilts, then presses into the mud. A section of deck plating buckles and detaches. A rusty girder falls, leaving a jagged gap. These images, while melancholic, inform preservation priorities. ROV teams revisit key areas annually to monitor change, recording data that feed into corrosion models. The wreck lies in international waters more than 370 miles south of Newfoundland, beyond any single nation's jurisdiction. Multiple countries claim interests: the UK as the ship's flag state, the US for many of the victims' nationalities, and Canada for the recovery of bodies and artifacts found ashore. In 2000, UNESCO drafted guidelines for underwater cultural heritage, emphasizing in situ preservation and restricting commercial salvage. Researchers navigate a complex legal landscape. Permits from the US District Court and cooperation with international bodies govern every expedition. Ethical codes demand that no human remains be disturbed. The Titanic's designation as a memorial site honors the over 1,500 lives lost, ensuring that exploration remains respectful. As physical decay continues, digital preservation grows in importance. High-definition photogrammetry, stitching thousands of images into a seamless 3D model, allows anyone to virtually dive to the wreck from a computer or VR headset. Imagine yourself adjusting goggles, then descending through simulated water to stand before the bow, reaching out to touch a virtual railing. Scholars annotate these digital models with interactive tags. Select the grand staircase to learn about its design. Click the boiler room to hear oral histories from stokers, or examine a lifeboat davit up close with embedded historical photographs. This immersive approach democratizes access, offering a calming yet informative exploration without risking further disturbance of the fragile site. Despite extensive study, key questions remain. Breakup sequence precision. Exactly where along the hull did structural failure initiate? New seismic mapping and high-frequency sonar aim to narrow this margin of error. Victim distribution. While the main deck was evacuated, How did third-class passengers fare below decks? Sonar surveys seek pockets of debris that may correspond to personal belongings in steerage areas. Environmental impact. How have deep-sea ecosystems adapted to the wreck's presence? Studies of rusticles and surrounding fauna reveal new species and symbiotic relationships. Oil leak fate. Will the remaining bunker oil eventually seep out entirely, or will it remain trapped indefinitely? Chemical tracers monitor seepage rates, informing broader ocean pollution models. Each research expedition adds pieces to the puzzle, yet the full picture remains elusive, an apt metaphor for the Titanic itself, forever suspended between memory and mystery. As we conclude segment 3, let your thoughts drift among the silent ruins of the Titanic. Picture the submersible's lights fading as they ascend, the ROV's robotic arms resting for the return journey, and the artifact's delicate forms awaiting their next chapter. In the hush of the deep, time moves differently, years passing in moments, decay unfolding over lifetimes. Yet human curiosity perseveres, seeking to understand, preserve, and honor. As we emerge from the depths of the Titanic's underwater ruins, allow your awareness to shift once more, this time to the lofty heights of White Star Line's boardrooms and drawing rooms, where opulence, influence, and quiet power shaped the vessel we have come to know. In this segment, we will step into the world of shipping magnates, corporate strategists, and social elites who envisioned, financed, and marketed the Titanic, not merely as a ship, but as a floating palace of modern luxury. Imagine yourself reclining in a leather-paneled office, the muted click of typewriters, and the soft murmur of voices your backdrop. Breathe gently, and let the rhythms of corporate life wash over you like a languid tide. In the late 19th century, a young London entrepreneur named Thomas Henry Ismay embarked on a bold venture. Picture the man, a tall figure in a tailored frock coat, crisp collar, and polished boots, striding along Liverpool's Albert Dock. The air is cool and damp, scented faintly with coal smoke and salt spray. Ismay surveys the tethered ocean liners, their hulls black and gleaming under grey skies. He conceives the White Star Line as a company that will distinguish itself not through speed alone, but through unmatched comfort. Imagine sitting across from Ismay in his study. Heavy velvet drapes mute the daylight. Oil lamps glow softly on oak shelves, lined with blue leather volumes. A thick Turkish wool carpet cushions each footfall. He outlines his plan in measured tones by focusing on stability, space, and elegance. White Star can lure upper-class passengers away from the faster Cunard line. He gestures to sketches of proposed liners, wide beams, double-height smoking rooms, vast dining salons, dream ships that float like grand hotels. To fund this vision, Ismay gathers investors in exclusive gentlemen's clubs rooms, perfumed by cigar smoke, draped in burgundy damask. A chandelier casts a warm glow over patrons nursing brandy in cut crystal tumblers. Maps of transatlantic routes spread across mahogany tables, dotted with handwritten notes on expected passenger volumes, freight tonnages, and projected profits. Bankers in three-piece suits crunch numbers, their gold pocket watches ticking in time with the silent aspirations of empire. Gentlemen, Ismay's voice resonates, calm and authoritative. We stand at the threshold of a new age of travel. Our liners will not merely traverse the ocean, they will redefine it. We shall make passage itself a luxurious experience, comfortable regardless of the gales and swells beneath us. Investors nod, the gravity of his words sinking in. Thus is born the corporate machinery that will produce Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic, three sisters set to outshine all before them. Fast forward to 1907. You step into the chairman's suite at White Star's London headquarters on James Street, Liverpool. The heavy door swings open to reveal high ceilings adorned with carved plasterwork, an emerald rug softening the footfall, and walls hung with maritime oil paintings, seer ships, battling waves, portraiture of dignitaries, and views of Southampton docks in mist. A writing desk of polished mahogany stands before tall windows curtained in deep emerald silk. Sir Bruce Ismay, Thomas's only son, presides here. Imagine him seated behind the desk, his posture composed, his tie impeccably knotted. He reviews blueprints of Titanic's hull cross-sections, annotating stress calculations with a fountain pen whose nib glimmers in the lamplight. He pauses to gaze out at the River Mersey, where tugs glide beneath overcast skies. Board meetings convene in a separate chamber, a long oval table of ebony, around which 12 directors are seated in high-backed leather chairs. Each gentleman women were rarely included in such gatherings at the time, represents a branch of the empire, shipbuilding, finance, insurance, logistics and more. The air is tinged with pipe tobacco and the sweet aroma of wood polish. At precisely 10 a.m., the chairman raps a silver-handled gavel. The meeting begins in hushed tones. The agenda ranges from steel plate procurement to the latest telegram on iceberg activity. The minutes are kept by a stenographer, whose pencil scratches softly on a legal pad. Each director presents updates. Director of Shipbuilding, Harland and Wolff, reports a 2% improvement in plating weld strength, though the curvature at frame 89 requires re-evaluation. Finance Director, quarterly earnings from cargo freight are up 8%, but operational expenditures on coal have risen 12% due to tariffs. Safety and regulations, new lifeboat capacity guidelines have yet to match passenger numbers. Proposal, retrofit collapsible boats from Olympic. Marketing Director, early bookings for Titanic's maiden voyage have exceeded projections by 15%. Our adverts in Harper's and the Times emphasize unmatched luxury and comfort. Each report is delivered in calm, unhurried cadence. Directors ask clarifying questions, gestures of assent or concern flickering across their composed faces. Decisions are recorded, actions assigned, and deadlines set usually in discrete durations such as by the second week of April, allowing flexibility yet ensuring accountability. Beyond the formal agenda, board members exchange social pleasantries. At tea, they discuss hunting trips, parliamentary gossip, and club memberships. Gentlemen's honor codes dictate decorum. Disagreements are conveyed with politeness. Voices never raised. Handshakes accompany farewells. Cigars are offered then politely refused or accepted with thanks. Through these rituals, the corporate culture cements itself, a blend of Victorian reserve, Edwardian confidence, and the burgeoning modernity of global commerce. It is within this culture that Titanic moves from blueprint to reality, a product of calm deliberation tempered by imperial vision. In the months before departure, White Star Line unleashes a refined marketing campaign aimed squarely at the elite. You hold a copy of the Illustrated London News, its pages uncut, the paper crisp. There, an advertisement spans half a page, a Knudsen engraved image of Titanic gliding beneath a sapphire sky. The tagline reads, RMS Titanic, all concessions to luxury and refinement, the largest and stablest ship afloat. Imagine drafting this ad in a small office in Fleet Street. The marketing director and an art editor leaning over richly textured letterpress proofs. They select flourishes a seahorse motif, filigreed borders that evoke both the sea's romance and the line's heritage. The copy emphasizes wall-to-wall carpeted decks, private promenade cabins, and the exclusive a la carte restaurant, a venue for those accustomed to Michelin-level service. On March 31st, 1912, White Star holds a press luncheon at a private club near Savile Row. Journalists from the Times, Daily Telegraph, and Harper's Weekly are invited. Imagine yourself seated at a long table draped in snow-white linens. Silver candlesticks illuminate chilled plates of consommé with poached salmon. A maitre d' in formal evening dress circulates, pouring Chateau Margaux. Sir Bruce Ismay stands at the head of the table to deliver remarks in measured tones. We have sought not merely to build a vessel, but to create an experience on Atlantic crossings. To arrive rested, refreshed, and reinvigorated shall be the traveller's expectation. He gestures to a scale model of Titanic encased in crystal, its brass propellers polished, its twin stacks poised. After the meal, guests are escorted to a showroom where the full-size Titanic writing desk and a cabin door are displayed. Photographers snap images under softening spotlights, and stories of the world's greatest ship grace Sunday supplements. Though the elite seldom tread the engine room, they find themselves immersed in Titanic's carefully orchestrated social world. Imagine you are an upper-class passenger stepping into the first-class smoking room. Dark English oak paneling, inlaid leather chairs arranged in conversation circles, and shelves lined with monogrammed decanters of Johnny Walker Rare. The ceiling is carved with mythological sea creatures, and frosted glass windows filter daylight into a soft glow. The social codes on board mirror those ashore. Morning assemblies in the spacious Café Parisien draw divorcees in sequined gowns, industrial magnates in frock coats, and debutantes in pastel tea dresses. Conversations drift from American railroad negotiations to French Chamber of Deputies scandals. Gentle reminders from the maître d' to observers. Please mind your hats, sir, madam, perhaps another cup of Darjeeling. An invitation to the a la carte restaurant is highly prized, an opportunity to dine on the finest cuisine at Michelin-level prices. Picture the entrance, brass plaque reading, "Please reserve in advance," an attendant opening a heavy mahogany door. Inside, linen-draped tables stand ready, each set with Sèvres porcelain and Riedel glassware. Your table overlooks the seawall through long curtained windows. You sip chilled Riesling, tasting citrus notes that cut the heaviness of rich sauces. Elsewhere, violin strings drift from a corner trio, weaving a soundtrack for refined conversation. Yet even here, the relentless hum of the engines is felt, a reminder that luxury and labor are intertwined. First-class staterooms aboard Titanic reflect the height of tasteful Edwardian design. Imagine an a-deck cabin, teak-paneled walls, silk damask draperies, and a pair of mahogany armchairs upholstered in deep burgundy velvet. A writing desk features a pull-out blotter, and the washstand boasts Worcester porcelain sinks with nickel-plated taps. The carpet, imported Brussels weave, is thick underfoot, its floral patterns in muted greens and golds. Outside your cabin door, the private promenade deck stretches along the ship's length. Potted ferns in ornate zinc planters stand against the polished railings. Overhead, varnished teak beams support a canvas awning that filters sunlight into a soft, dappled pattern. Gentle sea breezes carry the scent of salt and teak polish, a heady blend of yacht club prestige and maritime adventure. Access to these spaces depends on status and invitation. A private dinner in your cabin might be arranged through the purser, an opportunity to entertain business associates or close friends. The purser's office, located just off the grand staircase, is staffed 24 hours by suited clerks, managing reservations, delivering messages, and discreetly accommodating special requests. Extra pillows, custom champagne selections, or a late breakfast served at 11 a.m. Promenade etiquette is strictly enforced. Mind your parasols, a steward reminds a group of ladies. Gentlemen, coats must remain buttoned while on deck. Despite such formalities, promenading couples and clusters of acquaintances drift along the rails, pausing to admire the Atlantic vista and exchange rumors of upcoming port calls in Queenstown and Cherbourg. Before Titanic's maiden voyage, White Star directors scheduled a day-long inspection cruise. The board and key investors boarded at Southampton for a courtesy run to Cowes, Isle of Wight, and back. Imagine yourself among them, sipping tea in the first-class dining saloon as the ship quietly steamed without passengers. At timed intervals, Sir Bruce Ismay convened brief inspection stops, walkthroughs of all public spaces. He tested electric call bells in cabins, opened and closed pocket doors to ensure they operated silently, and sampled water from the freshwater system to confirm purity. Shipbuilders accompanied him, explaining functional details of the Marconi room, the ventilation system's fresh air coils, and the tennis court's deck paint formulation designed for both traction and elegance. In boardrooms afar, executives demanded proof of safety protocols. Though lifeboat capacity fell short of passenger totals, White Star management stressed compliance with then-current Board of Trade regulations. Internal memos outline lifeboat drill schedules, training regimens for deck officers, and maintenance logs for davit mechanisms. Crew briefings emphasized chain of command. Third Officer Boxhall would oversee starboard lifeboats, while Lightoller took charge of portside, ensuring efficient lifeboat lowering and passenger management. In calm, unhurried language, circulars distributed to officers reminded them, all lifeboat lowering must observe rule of women and children first and ensure full utilization. Report any mechanical anomaly immediately to engineering and bridge. These protocols, issued with quiet gravity, formed the backbone of the corporate commitment to passenger welfare. As Titanic's SOS messages crackled across transatlantic networks, White Star's London headquarters responded with stoic efficiency. Imagine yourself in the advisory office at 1 a.m. on April 15th, surrounded by telegraph operators perched at wooden desks. The operator's chair swivels as he toggles between cables from Titanic, Carpathia, and other vessels. Directors gather in a small conference room, their faces lit by green-shaded bankers' lamps. Minutes are marked in solemn hush. The chairman-Sipst's voice emerges, calm and precise. Continue monitoring Carpathia Sipst's progress. She is en route at full speed from Halifax ETA, approximately 4 a.m. Notify relevant consulates to prepare for survivor reception. Legal counsel reviews liability exposures. Insurance representatives prepare claims estimates. Public relations drafts holding statements for the press. White Star Line deeply regrets Titanic accepts misfortune and is committed to supporting survivors and families. At dawn, the first newspaper headlines appear. Titanic sinks. Great loss of life blares the front page of the Times. White Star issues a formal communiqué. Captain Smith and his officers are to be commended for exemplary conduct and devotion to duty. The company extends its sincere condolences in elegantly worded paragraphs. The statement balances corporate responsibility with praise for bravery, mitigating potential public outcry. Within club circles, social gossip surges. Guests at Grosvenor House learn of the tragedy over breakfast. Inquiries ripple through merchant banking houses, concerns over bond repayments tied to ship revenues. Yet, beneath the tremor of shock, elite confidence holds firm. Corporate reputations can withstand adversity when managed with composure. In the weeks following, White Star convenes a special inquiry board comprised of senior executives, legal advisors, and naval architects. Meeting notes terse, factual outline proposed reforms, additional lifeboats, constant wireless watch, enhanced lookouts, and integrated iceberg patrol collaboration. Skilled minutes takers capture resolutions, lifeboat capacity to accommodate 120% of maximum complement, continuous 24-hour wireless operator staffing, and binoculars to be issued to all lookouts. A corporate circular titled, "Improving Safety and Service" circulates to all White Star vessels. It reads with reassuring calm. In light of lessons learned, we are committed to embracing best practices and elevating standards. Passenger comfort and well-being remain our highest priority. The language avoids admission of fault, instead emphasizing forward-looking improvement, a hallmark of elite corporate communication. Over the next decade, White Star Line integrates these changes into a broader ethos of corporate responsibility. Training manuals are updated with Titanic's case studies. Officer cadets learn about iceberg collision physics as part of their bridge resource management curriculum. In social circles, the line's reputation evolves. No longer merely a purveyor of luxury, it becomes a standard-bearer for safe, sophisticated transatlantic travel. Imagine a young shipbroker in 1920 referencing Titanic when negotiating passage. White Star embodies both prestige and prudence. And so, the elite who once admired White Star for plush interiors now commend it for seamless, secure voyages, a testament to how corporate culture can adapt while preserving its core image of refined elegance. As you absorb the measured rhythms of corporate deliberation, lavish drawing rooms and crisis management calm, notice how your breathing syncs with the gentle unfolding of events. The world of White Star's elite is one of soft carpets, muted conversations and unhurried decisions, yet beneath it lies the powerful engine of global commerce and social prestige. As our voyage draws to its final chapter, let us drift gently into the river of memory, where the Titanic's story continues to flow. In this segment, we will explore the intimate voices of those who wrote and never sent their letters, the recollections of survivors carried across oceans and decades, the cultural ripples that transformed a tragedy into timeless myth, and the subtle ways in which the ship's legacy still shapes our understanding of human ambition, vulnerability, and hope. Breathe deeply, let go of the present for a while, and imagine yourself poring over faded stationery by candlelight, or sitting quietly in a museum gallery where artifacts whisper across glass cases. Imagine a small cabin berth amid the steerage quarters, crowded with other hopeful emigrants bound for New York. There, a young mother unfolds a sheet of thin, blue-lined paper. Her hands tremble slightly, both from the cold night air rolling in through the porthole and from the weight of the words she is about to write. She pens a letter to her sister back in County Cork. "My dearest Bridget, the voyage began with promise. The sea calm as a prayer. The children sleep now, their heads on lumpy pillows, but my heart beats with both excitement and fear. Soon we will see the Lady Liberty herself, but until then I hold tight to faith and to your memory, I pray." Pause here and feel the softness of that paper, the imprint of her pen strokes, the slight scent of damp sea air mingled with candle wax. She intended to send this note across the Atlantic, folded neatly and dropped in the onboard mail chute. Yet, in the confusion of the sinking, the scramble to deck, the press of strangers, the icy wind whipping the seawater, her letter slipped from her pocket. Perhaps it fell into the rising water, or was left behind as lifeboats pulled away. In any case, her words lie somewhere in the debris field, preserved in silt or slowly disintegrating beneath rusticles. The emotional power of such unsent letters is profound. Each one represents not only a life interrupted, but also a voice striving to connect, to bear witness, to to leave a record of hope amid uncertainty. Modern researchers have recovered fragments of postmarked envelopes and splintered writing tablets. Conservators have painstakingly stabilized waterlogged letters still bearing copperplate scrawl. Each fragment, ink-smeared, edges frayed, speaks volumes about human resilience and the small acts of love that persisted even in the Titanic's final hours. Consider a coal stoker far below decks, his skin smudged with soot, his lungs filled with hot, choking air. He knows little of stationery, but he has a small notebook with a worn leather cover. On its final page, he scrawls a short message to his wife. "Maria, if this reaches you, know I fought with all my strength. The engines gave way, and I remained at my post until the end. The children tell them, I loved them more than this world." This note, left upright against a boiler housing, may still exist among archaeological fragments. The sincerity of his farewell, unpolished, immediate, unedited, captures the stark courage of thousands of crew members who stayed at their duty stations. When conservators recover charred or corroded notebooks, they employ microscopic infrared imaging to reveal words invisible to the naked eye. Each ghostly letter recovered is a testament to the human spirit beneath industrial gloom. In the weeks and months following the rescue, over 700 Titanic survivors recounted their experiences to journalists, official inquiries, and friends. Their voices, often calm, sometimes trembling, formed the earliest chronicles of the disaster. One such testimony comes from Second Officer Charles Lightoller, who survived by clinging to overturned collapsible boat bay for hours. The night sky seemed endless, as though the sea had swallowed all boundaries. The survivors huddled in that canvas boat, sharing whispers of home, of loved ones, of prayers. We clung not only for life, but for memory, holding one another through the cold until dawn. Lightoller's words, recorded in pale blue inquiry transcripts, carry both procedural detail and human warmth. He describes issuing officers' whistles, the order to lower lifeboats, and the poignant moment when he realized no more boats remained. Yet he also recalls the quiet solidarity among those afloat, sharing coats, rationing biscuits, encouraging one another with soft humor. Other survivors, third-class passengers, children in PJs, elderly emigrants, added their accounts in letters sent to newspapers. Over time, some revisited the story in memoirs, published decades later. Each retelling subtly shifted with memory, the passage of years smoothing rough edges while preserving essential truths: the panic, the steadfastness, the heartache, and the occasional spark of kindness from strangers. In the mid-20th century, oral historians recorded elderly survivors recounting their Titanic experiences. These interviews, conducted in quiet living rooms with tape recorders, captured intimate details: the feel of fine carpets under bare feet, the rich scent of the à la carte restaurant, the distant strains of the ship's band attempting to lighten the terror. Listen to Eva Hart, age 7 at the time, speaking at age 90. "I remember the band as if it were a lullaby gone wrong, playing waltzes even as the ship leaned and groaned. My mother held me close. She didn't set cry, but her hand trembled in mine." The simplicity of a child's perspective reframes the disaster, not in terms of technical failures, but as a profound rupture of safety. These oral histories became pillars of later Titanic scholarship, offering emotional texture that dry inquiries could not. Grandchildren who heard these stories passed them down as family lore, blending personal reminiscence with collective myth. Over the past century, the Titanic has inspired hundreds of books, poems, and films. Jack Tayer's early memoirs give a first-hand narrative of a teenage passenger's impressions. Fictional works like Morgan Robertson's Futility eerily predate the tragedy. Modern novels reimagine the disaster through new lenses: alternate histories, maritime mysteries, and unsent letter epistles. In 1997, James Cameron's film Titanic reached global audiences, weaving historical events with a fictional love story. While critics note its melodrama, the film's success rests on evoking universal themes: class divides in the dining salons, human hubris against nature's might, the enduring bond of love even in catastrophe. Its box office triumph attests to the Titanic's hold on the collective imagination. The ship as both technological marvel and cautionary tale. Film historian Andrea Mitchell observes, "The Titanic narrative is a vessel for our deepest anxieties and desires: ambition, romance, mortality, and the fragile line between triumph and tragedy. Each retelling casts a new mirror on our own era." In this way, Titanic stories become cultural barometers, reflecting societal hopes and fears, from early 20th century faith in progress to late 20th century concerns about hubris and environmental risk. Around the world, Titanic memorials and exhibits invite quiet reflection. In Belfast's Titanic Quarter, a museum occupies the very slip where the ship was built. Its gallery walls, bathed in soft amber light, display original ship plans, rivet guns, and a preserved section of hull plating. Visitors walk beneath a suspended half-scale bow, hearing recorded oral histories echoing across the space. In Southampton, the Titanic Engineers Memorial lists the names of 35 engineers and firemen who perished, carved in pale stone beneath a vaulted canopy. Each name is a silent sentinel, an anchor for family memory and communal grief. Small local shrines exist too. A plaque in a rural Newfoundland church, where recovered bodies were brought ashore, a donated life jacket in a maritime museum in Halifax, Canada. Even personal heirlooms, shattered plates, jewelry recovered from ocean dives displayed in community centres. Each site fosters quiet contemplation. Visitors leave flowers, light candles, or inscribe their own thoughts in guest books. The Titanic story remains a cautionary fable of human ambition, outpacing prudence. In boardrooms and shipyards, the unsinkable boasts reflected confidence in steel and steam. Below decks, the men who stoked fires understood the vessel's vulnerability better than most. The cruel irony lies in the gulf between corporate swagger and hidden toil. Reflect on how this dynamic mirrors modern parallels. Towering skyscrapers tested by wind, software systems vulnerable to cyber attack, ambitious ventures into deep space or genetic frontiers. The Titanic reminds us that every technological triumph carries unseen seams, weaknesses that demand respect and humility. Titanic's passenger hierarchy, from grand saloons to cramped steerage, illuminates persistent social divides. First-class passengers enjoyed sumptuous menus, private promenades, and lifeboat privileges. Third-class emigrants hoped for a better life, but faced difficult muster protocols. Though women and children first applied across classes, in practice, many steerage women had limited access to boat decks. These inequities resonate today: disparities in healthcare access, economic opportunity, and disaster preparedness. In modern crises, hurricanes, pandemics, humanitarian emergencies, the most vulnerable often remain marginalized. Titanic's legacy challenges us to examine how social structures distribute risk and safety, and to strive for more equitable protections. Despite the passage of time, the Titanic's echo persists, because we continue to tell its story. Collective memory shaped by personal narratives, creative works, and public commemorations ensures that the ship's fate remains more than a historical footnote. It becomes a lesson, a symbol, and a shared reference point for exploring fundamental human themes. Sociologist Paul Connaughton writes, "Memory is enacted in repetition and ritual, and so we revisit Titanic exhibitions, screen films on its anniversary, publish new research, and hold commemorative ceremonies every April 14th, 15. Each act renews our connection to the past and invites fresh interpretations, keeping the story alive in the gentle glow of remembrance." As our 2-hour odyssey concludes, let your thoughts drift between the extremes we have explored: the furnace room's heat and the lifeboat's icy chill, the hush of the grand staircase and the roar of corporate boardrooms, the silent, decaying wreck on the ocean floor, and the gleaming replicas in museum galleries. These contrasts remind us of the Titanic's multifaceted nature, a vessel of progress and peril, of luxury and labor, of tragedy and transformation. Place yourself now on a quiet shore at dawn. The sea stretches before you, calm and unassuming. The wind carries salt and possibility. In the distance, the silhouette of a modern liner passes, sleeker, faster, perhaps safer than Titanic, yet built on lessons learned beneath its steel plates. Feel the warmth of the sun on your face, the steady rhythm of waves against the breakwater. In this moment, the past and present converge in peace. History's true power lies not in stirring adrenaline, but in offering perspective. The Titanic invites us to remember that innovation must be tempered by care, that every ambition touches real lives, and that memory, whether in unsent letters, fading oral histories, or museum artifacts, anchors our humanity. As you prepare to rest, imagine the sea's lullaby, the gentle lap of tide against hull, the soft creak of timbers in calm waters, the distant call of seabirds at dawn. Let your breath match that rhythm. Carry with you a sense of quiet appreciation for those who built and crewed Titanic, for the passengers who dreamed of new horizons, and for the generations who continue to honor their stories. Thank you for joining this voyage through Titanic's world, its hidden engine rooms, its heroic bridge, its sunken remains, and its glittering elite salons. May these reflections accompany you into a restful sleep, your mind drifting like a small boat over gentle waves, guided by memory's steady light.